Did the pandemic make our children fatter? Let's find out right now. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. We'll get you on the grind and improving your mind every single video that we come out with. So in this video, we're going to talk about a study that we found. It's basically talking about the obesity rising in children regarding the pandemic and all the crap that's happened. So let's look at it and share the screen with you guys to give you an accurate description of what we are talking about today.
Yeah, so I'll put it up on the screen. You're going to see it right now. And this is a big article. It's going to be a link in the description as well, so you guys can read along. The Journal of Pediatrics put out this. Pretty much the title is "The Coronavirus Disease 2019 Pandemic is Associated with a Substantial Rise in Frequency and Severity of Presentation of Youth-Onset Type 2 Diabetes."
What a surprise.
Yeah, so let's talk about the results real quick. There's a lot of things to talk about in this, but we're just going to go into the results.
Once again, you guys can look at this for yourself, link in the description below, so you guys can take an accurate look at what we're talking about on your own time.
Exactly, and we can all have a conversation about it in the comments below.
So make sure you leave some comments below to help us out.
Exactly. So let's go. Let's see. It says a total of 3,459 patients with new onset type 2 diabetes were identified from 24 centers across the U.S.
Great.
Of these, 312 were excluded due to inadequate antibody data. 32 were excluded due to BMI, it says I think it's less than 85 percentile. One was excluded due to suspicion for monogenic diabetes, and one was excluded due to young age, atypical of type 2 diabetes. Thus, the final analysis included 3,113 participants. The average number of new diagnoses per year in the two pre-pandemic years was 825, compared with 1,463 diagnosed during the first pandemic year, an increase of 77.3%. The increase in new presentation was seen across almost all sites, and this is all these tables are down here, and we'll look at them as well. The largest contributing site reported 426 new cases. The South and West regions were overrepresented, particularly compared with the Northeast. The mean age at presentation did not change over the 3-year period. So let's look at this table one real quick, demographic and all this other stuff. So let's see. This is all the regions, and this is all the numbers for those. These ones right here are all from before the pandemic. And this is like 2018 to 2019, 2019, 2020, and then during the pandemic. So it goes 201 for the Midwest, then 214. And so there was already an increase. We've talked about how like diabetes and obesity and all these things are on the rise, and they have been for a while. And this just proves that right here with new data, right?
What a surprise. People got fatter from sitting around for lockdown in their house for a few months. Go figure.
Yeah, and it's worse because when you go from pre-pandemic, which is 2019 to 2020, into the first pandemic year, which is 2020 into 2021, it goes from 214 to 342. That's insane. That's over 100, and what is that? 100 and almost 130, close to 130 people, or 130 percent. And the Northeast, because we're from the Northeast, right? A lot of us try to be active, and we try to not deal with those types of things. Like, how we've tried to helping as many people as we can with this kind of stuff with diabetes, but it is always on the rise. As you can see, it goes from 64 to 93. That's actually a huge jump in comparison to the Midwest. And then it gets even worse, and it goes to 168. This just shows here, all this shows the amount of increase of pretty much diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically.
These kids are not meant to be gaining weight like this. It's not natural. And maybe like when you're older, like maybe in your 50s, 60s, 70s, because when you get older, your body a lot gains weight a lot easier. This is known fact. But these children being overweight and obese, this is just like uncalled for. Technically, it's not the kids' fault. It's the parents who are feeding them all this garbage. I mean, a lot of parents don't even want to be parents. They just want to give their kid pizza, shut them up, and put them in the other room, and then sedate themselves with iPads and TikTok videos all day. Now, this may seem harmless now, but when these kids grow up in the internet world, eating pizza all day, being very obese, being very insecure about themselves. Yes, the world is going to change. It's going to get more violent. It's going to get a lot worse. It's my predictions, at least. How can we, solve this? I mean, if I have kids, I'm not going to be feeding them nonsense. I'm going to try to get them outside, despite government. We're not in China, so we can just, I'm going to send my kids out to play with other kids and be active, or teach my kids how to fight. Options are endless. But but a lot of parents, they just let their kids eat whatever they want. They just allow them to be in their room watching videos on YouTube all day, or TikTok, whatever stupid social media they have. And the kids are just eating Cheetos in their rooms, in their beds, playing video games. Like, this is the world we live in now. So these kids are, of course, and most of our food is processed, as we know. But this is the result. Bigger kids, we've never seen this in human history, because we've never had an overabundance of food. It's like people talk about the starvation, homeless people. We talk about all these, world hunger. It's like, world hunger? Where everybody's fat? What world hunger are you talking about? At least I'm just speaking for America. I know there's parts in the world that don't.
First world problems.
Yeah. I mean, America, we don't really. I mean, we have a serious overconsumption problem in America, and a serious lack of discipline in America as well. And part of that is not only you and having you be in shape, but it's also your kids also being healthy. A lot of you are not even raising your kids right, because, like, I'm not going to give my kid pizza all the time. I'm not going to give my kid, all these garbage processed foods. If you love someone, you want to take care of your child, you should give them healthy stuff. Obviously.
Exactly. Now, this is something interesting.
Just give up.
This is something actually really interesting to me, and it's on the screen so you guys can look at it. I'm looking at the female to male comparisons here. So in 2018 to 2019, there are more diagnoses of diabetes in women than men, at 421 to men's 343, right? And that stays about the same, but it also increases when it goes to the year before the pandemic, 2019 to 2020, with 488 for women and 398. Now, I see this as, because women are the main consumers of not just food specifically, but I'm talking about consumers of the economy. They're the ones that buy the most. And so I can see this as one of those factors of where women buy food more.
And also because they get emotional, they get sad, they want to eat and all that.
So. Yes, exactly. Where some men, they don't eat terrible.
Men
some
also
men
have more
don't.
like bone muscle structure, so it helps them burn fat easier compared to women who don't. So they gain fat a little bit easier, unfortunately.
Yeah, but then we get to the pandemic. So, and like we said before, the shit skyrockets, right? So women went from 488 to 663, which is huge, right? But men, when they were pretty much forced to sit down and not go outside and not do anything, it goes from just under 400 to 800.
Yeah, that's a little insane.
The percentage difference on both pre-pandemics was women were at 55% to men's almost 45%. And then it switches. So now men have the majority and women do not. So
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Maybe you guys should be asking that in the comment section below and give your thoughts on that. But we'll give our opinion. I mean, it's a good question.
This, to me, is because with men, we are able to burn fat a lot easier, especially depending on your genetic structure. Most men, if they're active, right, they can easily burn fat, so they won't have to deal with getting type 2 diabetes, right, as easily. But when you strap a man down, you leave him inside and you make him eat food that he shouldn't be eating, not with no way of actually being able to get rid of it through fitness or by being active in some sort of way, then you set yourself up for this. Set yourself up to have this issue. Women, I'm pretty sure with women, it was just this was normal. I feel like with women, this is just a normal increase, even though I say normal in comparison to everything else that we see in this table here. This seems normal with the increase, but with men, this is doubling. This is literally doubling the amount. Where women, it's not.
Men really are getting weaker in our society. Once again, proof. For some reason, they want all the men to be. Men are becoming women by more and more every day, getting weaker, getting fatter, and this is obvious. Maybe there's some master plan. I'm not going to go full conspiracy theorist in this video, but
And if we bring
There's
it
something
back,
going on.
if we bring it back now, is also with kids, right? And if we interject this with children, a lot of male children are super active. They're always running around, being creative, doing all these different things, right? Where the female children don't do it too much. They do it just enough, but they're not overactive, right? But when you sit a boy down, make him play video games, make him eat a whole bunch of junk food and stuff, and pretty much sedate him that way for over a year, of course this is what's going to happen.
And then these kids are going to grow up with some very nasty habits that are going to be a little bit harder to overcome. So
Yeah.
get ready for the future, guys, because it's going to come hard and fast. And unfortunate.
Yeah, this is honestly these tables here, they show a lot of great data. And I recommend everyone to read a lot of these things. But let's continue reading this. Because of an apparent peak of diagnosis in August, a covariate corresponding to August versus other months was tested, but was not significant. Thus, the final model did not include any effect of seasonality. There was a difference in racial ethnic distribution over the 3 years, with post hoc analyses demonstrating increased diagnosis among Black youth and decreased diagnosis among white youth. During the pandemic year, the vast majority of new type 2 diabetes diagnosis occurred in those with public insurance during all 3 years. There was a reversal in the proportion of male versus female, which is what we talked about, compared with the female during the male. Yeah, so I talked about that. There was no difference in association of sex by race, ethnicity, pre and post pandemic. See, when they talk about race and stuff, I feel like there really isn't much to really go off of there, other than them trying to just separate us by race. So take that as you will. I don't really care for any of that stuff. BMI was statistically greater on presentation in the pandemic year compared with pre-pandemic year 1 and 2. Patients with new onset type 2 diabetes presented with greater HbA1c and greater blood glucose during the pandemic compared with 2 previous years. And in the pandemic years, more patients with new onset type 2 diabetes were diagnosed as outpatients. There was a reversal during the pandemic years, such that more patients were diagnosed and managed as inpatients. Further, 21% of youth presented with metabolic decompensation at diagnosis of type 2 diabetes during the first year of the pandemic, compared with 9.4% and 9% in pandemic 1 and year 2, respectively. New patients in this cohort had a concurrent COVID-19 infection detected at presentation of type 2 diabetes.
Of course, that never helps.
No, never. A negative binomial time series model showed that pandemic onset had a significant effect on the number of type 2 diabetes diagnoses, with a parameter estimate of 15.2. This estimate represents an increase of 15.2 type 2 diabetes cases per month, although the effect is not strictly additive because the background linear trend of 5% increase per year is applied to the increased number of cases per month. Another negative binomial time series model demonstrated a significant effect of the pandemic on the number of patients presenting with metabolic decompensation, with a parameter estimate of 7.
We really do need to start doing better, because this stuff is affecting us, our everyday lives every day. We don't even realize it. The stuff we eat, things we consume, it's really going to catch up to us. These kids are going to suffer when they grow up. It's going to be equally as bad or even worse. We need to start monitoring what we're eating and what our kids are eating as well to prevent further disaster, especially in America. So I figured it would be interesting to show the study, give some thoughts to it. So I'm going to end the video here. This is a warning to you guys people who have kids. Treat your kids' bodies with respect. Feed them the right foods. Don't let them get lazy. Make them do something. We have to, we got to get this world back on track. We can only do it starting at an individual level, starting with ourselves, get ourselves healthy, back on track, and then when we have kids, when we raise them, we want to raise them in a healthy way. We don't want to give them all this fast food, all this processed foods. We want to give them the right stuff, make them active, get some friends, go out, play some sports, combat sports. And with that said, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Make sure you leave a comment section below, a comment in the comment section explaining what you think about the situation, and you can donate to the Cash App. Link in the description. Funds go towards the equipment for this channel. And with that said, we're going to see you guys in the next video.